and ourselves your servants for Jesus' sake. For we preach not ourselves, but Christ Jesus. Who? He's the Lord. He's the Master. Is He not the example of the one who ministered most? Did He not wash His disciples' feet? Did He not feed the 5,000? Did He not feed the 7,000? Did He not? Was there not plenty coming back? Did He not heal the sick? Did He not show us that our job is to minister to people? Not without giving them the gospel, but minister to them nonetheless. We are so scared of being in our circles. I say that in the independent Baptist circle sometimes. We're so scared of being considered preaching a social gospel that we become unsociable. Who said not to feed the hungry? Who said not to take care of the sick? Who said not to go visit the fatherless and the widows, the elderly? Who said not to go visit the prisoners? Who said not to send care packages to the men who are fighting our wars all around us? Who said our whole ministry was just get out there and tell them that Jesus died for their sins? Now let me say, if we leave that out, then all we do is become a social club. And the YMCA and all them other groups, the Salvation Army and all those groups out there, we're nothing more than them. We're just like Goodwill. I got to get that right. I get that all confused sometimes. Goodyear and Goodwill. Goodyear is where you take your tires to, and Goodwill is where you go to spend too much money for too little stuff because they charge way too much most of the time. All right. When they get it for free. That's it. So, I'm not getting into all that. What I'm trying to say is, our thing is we ought to submit to authority. But if we refuse, or if this authority gets over us, then guess what? And they come down and they're oppressing us, then there does come a place where we have to say, we cannot submit to this authority, but we do it first by appeal, never by aggression. Let them be the aggressor. Let them be the one who tells us that we are going to be thrown in prison. Let them throw us in prison. Paul did not go to them and start saying, hey, I have a right to preach. He went and he preached. Why? Because he had a responsibility. When they threw him in prison and beat him, he said, wait a minute, hold on, I appeal to Caesar. Why? Because you beat me unjustly. You've done unjust. You stepped way beyond even your own laws. And therefore I'm appealing to authority. You know what we do nowadays? The second they say you can't do something, we say, oh, I'm going to file a lawsuit. No, I'm just going to go do it. I'm going to go do it. I just wonder this, just hitting in passion. I'll probably hit on this again probably. How many of them kids would have walked out of school if their parents knew that or if these kids knew, and this didn't happen, if the school didn't get behind them, but if they said, you're going to lose your scholarship because if you're a valedictorian, you are going to be suspended from school for walking out of school. You have the right. You're an American citizen. You have the right to civil disobedience. But it's going to cost you. You walk out, you lose your place, you'll fail. That day you will be suspended from school and you will not be allowed back in that class. But you have walked out of class or in the middle of the classroom. And therefore you'll lose that, you get suspended, therefore you'll probably lose your scholarship. You were valedictorian yesterday, looking like you're going to be valedictorian. Now you're going to lose your scholarships because you're not going to be valedictorian anymore. How many of them would have done it then? No consequences to civil disobedience. You know what that causes? That causes a lack of respect for authority. When there's no consequences. When you can burn or burn things and tear up things. And they say, oh, no, they're just kids. They're just college students. Oh, something bad happened in our community. We're not going to arrest them and punish them to the full extent of the law. Then now Florida law is not honorable. I'm not against civil disobedience when it's necessary. But the apostles, everybody you'll find throughout the Bible, it costed them. There was never civil disobedience without a cost. Then you must count the cost. What has happened in our society is we start saying, well, they have a right to do this. And so therefore, we're going to cater to them. Can I say, you do not have a right, according to the law, to be civilly disobedient. You might have a responsibility to be civilly disobedient. But if the law says you can't do it, if the law says I can't preach the gospel in Shelbyville, guess what I plan on doing? Preaching the gospel in Shelbyville. If the law says I have to take a license to preach, you know what I plan on doing? I plan on preaching. If the law says I have to I cannot go door to door on visitation, you know what I'm planning on doing? I'm going door to door on visitation, or finding another way to get into those homes. Why? I've got a responsibility. I preached this some years ago, not this exact message, but this idea, and I had a church that got so mad at me because of the fact that I'm preaching what the Bible teaches. There is a consequence for civil disobedience. We have a responsibility to get the gospel to every creature. We have a responsibility to live righteous. We have a responsibility to stand up for Christianity and for our rights. But we do not have a right to become the aggressor against the oppressor. We have a right to stand our ground and let them be the aggressor. You say, why is that? Because when that happens, all of a sudden we can look to our authority and say, listen, I've submitted to the best I can. Lord, you've said this is all the farther I can go. You've said I cannot do this. They fired me for not hauling liquor before I ever told them, and that was actually against the law. It's my religious liberties according to the United States of America. I was not going to tell them that until they fired me. I was not going to be the aggressor. Why? Because once they became the oppressor, then I can say, hey, it isn't what somebody said they might do. This is what they did. It wasn't just threatening me. We will find in our morning message, the apostles were threatened. You know what they did? They kept doing what they did. They stood their ground. It's because it's better to obey God than man. All I'm trying to tell us is there's an authority. We are to submit to authority until such a time as authority pushes us to the place where submission to that authority cannot be done righteously. Let me say, there's no law in the United States of America that says you have to have an abortion. So therefore, when we fight against the abortion issue, we don't fight against the abortion issue because of the fact that we fight against it because abortion's wrong. That's why we fight against it. But none of us has to have an abortion. The law's not saying that. If the laws did say you had to have an abortion, I can find when they told the midwives to kill the babies in the book of Exodus, you know what they did? They said, we can't do that. We can't obey that. They had to honor God. Why? Because it's important. We're to protest, we're to demonstrate, we're to do whatever you want to call it, against sin and unrighteousness, but not are we to rebel against the law until the law rebels against the God-given authority of God Himself. that's when we have to say, it's better to obey God than man. Father, I pray you to take these Sunday school things